This is ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450. Zach Sako here, and joining us via Zoom is head coach Jeff Vroman of the Philipsburg-Osceola Mountaineers. Coach, thanks so much for your time today.
You're welcome.
In our conversation today, we're going to talk about the season for PO plus the upcoming game against Bellefonte, which is just a couple of days away from the time of our conversation, and it'll be an exciting one. We will be there covering the game live on ESPN Radio between Bellefonte and PO, but this is a PO team that got off on the right foot, a 49-20 win against West Branch, and then Law is now in a 3 consecutive losing streak. Coach, your initial takeaways from that emphatic win at a non-conference game?
Yeah, we come out for a first game as a coach. I was pleased that we were composed. We didn't have a lot of maybe pre-snap penalties. We didn't fumble the ball around. We did a pretty good job for that first game, just in game operation, making sure that the calls were correct. We were executing, and some people say, well, that sounds simple, but we're still executing, getting the play call, the correct play call, getting in and out of the huddle in a timely fashion, because those are things sometimes high school teams struggle with.
Right.
And that was something that we were good with. We took advantage of some of their mistakes. And of course, we scored 49 points. So, that tells you we didn't punt that evening. So that tells you things went pretty well. So that was a great way to start the season.
The ground game was very effective. 335 total yards. What does it say about a team that is able to get multiple ball carriers 75 plus yards in a game like that? Is that PO football? You want to be able to dictate the game with the ground game?
Yeah, ideally, I think any high school football coach would tell you that, where you have multiple ball carriers, they can't focus on one particular person, being able to spread the wealth. That also keeps them fresher, especially now with us starting our first game so early in August, and with the heat and the humidity, that was something that was definitely important that evening. Yes.
Philipsburg-Osceola football head coach Jeff Vroman joining us here on PA Prep Sports Breakdown, our high school sports show. Now, while West Branch was a success and the offense looked great, the defense forced 2 turnovers. Now the Mounties are in a little bit of a stretch here with back-to-back-to-back losses. What has been the most telling part about this team? They're a resilient team because Tyrone and Clearfield are very physical. They're traditionally very good programs. And for PO to go through there and have those games in the schedule early so that you match up well with opponents later on to get those tough battles out of the way. Is that fair to say that for PO?
Well, the rough part about the 3-game skid that we're on was against Huntington. We were up. We scored to go up 10-0 with 5 minutes left in the game. And they made a couple great plays. I mean, they were just athletes making plays on a 4th down play toward the end of the football game to set up their go-ahead score. And so it's been pretty tough, especially with the young football team that we have. We don't have a lot of seniors, and we're still in that growing we're still in a growing atmosphere. And those young athletes, to try to get that point across, to keep your head up, is sometimes much easier than it is to accomplish. So yeah, that was definitely a tough loss. The second one at Tyrone, I mean, we gave up 2 punt returns for touchdowns. They also had a fumble recovery they scooped up and went in for a score. So we gave them 21 points. 10 minutes into with 10 minutes to go in the second quarter, that game was 0-0. At halftime, it was 35-0. So those types of momentum swings definitely affect you when you have so many young football players. Last week, Clearfield, a lot of 1-2 play drives, a lot of big plays, big pass plays where we missed a tackle and their team speed showed up. it was definitely evident that they were much faster than we were. And those big plays oftentimes make a game sound sometimes worse than what it really was. So the last 2 weeks, it's been a lot of just big plays. And that's really put us behind the eight ball as far as being able to establish things.
Has that been the focus for you and your defense now, limiting those big plays? Or James Franklin at Penn State says a lot that we need to win this battle and have more big plays than the opponent. Is P.O. focusing on that, particularly leading into Bellefonte?
Oh, absolutely. That's something we have to force Bellefonte to drive the length of the field in 10 or more plays, which is pretty tough for a high school football team to do. We can't be giving up easy completions. We can't be giving up chunk plays, as we refer to it in the world of football. So that's something that we've definitely stressed this week. We are getting healthier. When I say healthier, it hasn't been physical injury per se. It's been a lot of sickness.
I understand, yeah.
We've had a lot of kids that have been, even myself, I was actually out a whole week. So we've just been battling we've been battling COVID and the flu. And so it's been tough the last 3 weeks. So hopefully we can, I think we're pretty much past that. I'm hoping. And now we just need to get back to some consistent football, which I saw in our first scrimmage and really in our first 2 football games.
Philipsburg-Osceola football head coach Jeff Vroman is on the show with us here via Zoom. You mentioned that this is a young team, a team that is going to gain experience and look probably pretty good in the next couple of years or so, given that you'll have that seniority. But one of the key senior figures on this team is your quarterback, Ben Gusky. And while this isn't a pass-first offense, he's very reliable on the ground as well. He has the most rushing touchdowns. He's one of the leaders in terms of total overall rushing yards. What is it like to have him leading the offense week in, week out with the experience that he has behind him?
The great thing about Ben is he's very knowledgeable. He's a student of the game. He knows where everyone should be. You always ask the quarterback to make sure that everybody's in the correct formation. He knows where everyone should be, what their job is. In the pass game, when given time, he's been effective. Last week we had a couple dropped footballs which ended drives, but he's done a pretty good job in the pass. And as you mentioned, also in the run game, there's some things there that he's been successful with in all 4 football games. So we have to. We rely on him. He's the leader out there, both offensively and defensively in the secondary. And I definitely wouldn't want anybody else doing it but him.
P.O. plays Bellefonte this week, and again, this will be on ESPN Radio State College beginning at 6:30 with our pregame show, and live coverage continues with kickoff at 7. This is a game of 2 teams that still have a lot to prove in the Mountain League. Bellefonte coming into this game winless. P.O. does have 1 win under its belt, so this game is very important for both teams to get some traction as we approach the midway point of the season. You mentioned that the part of the game plan is going to be limiting big plays against Bellefonte, maybe trying to, if it's not a 3-and-out, at least forcing them to try to drive down the field. How do you want to attack the Red Raider defense?
Well, defensively, as we look at it, they're an even front. Could be 4. They may walk both outside linebackers up on line of scrimmage. So we're prepared for that. We just have to make sure that we are as aggressive or more aggressive than they are up front, because that's something that impresses me as I watch film on them. I think defensively, I think their front 4, that's probably the better part of their defense. They are aggressive. They do get off blocks. They put pressure on the quarterback in passing situations. So that's something that we've really have been focusing on this week to try to take care of those up front people, whether it be in the run or pass game.
Back to the offensive side of it, for your perspective leading into Bellefonte, they showed some flashes of what they can do on offense. They put up 20 against a good Penns Valley team in the first half, but they haven't been able to exactly find their stride through the first 4 games. How do you make sure it stays that way aside from just limiting big plays?
Yeah, last week they did throw the ball a little more. They completed some passes over the middle against Tyrone with some crossing routes. They utilized some different formations. So that's something that we've tried to make our kids aware of. We can't let that happen. They also took advantage of a couple turnovers last week and gained some field position. That's something that is crucial for us to make sure that doesn't happen. We want to pin them back any chance we get and keep them back, in their own territory. We don't want to be giving up field position because of a mistake. As I said before, just force them to drive the field on us. But they have, like I said, last week they were more relying on the pass. But we have to also make sure that we're prepared in the run game with the quarterback powers, the ISOs, some of the jet sweeps. We got to make sure we contain that, set the edge. They definitely bring about some problems for us defensively that we have to make sure that we're prepared for.
One of the final questions I have for you, Coach, this one, and then just one last thought on the game itself. With what you can share, what has PO put together in terms of a blueprint to try to win this game against Bellefonte?
Once again, it's being consistent in all phases. Now we're not going to be substituting, I guess, as much as we were the last couple of weeks because of sickness. That even affected our special teams. Our punt coverage was great up until the point where we had to start, substituting, putting kids in that, and you do work them, but maybe they're not so sure on things. So hopefully in the special teams game, we can gain some field position. Defensively, we have to play solid football. We have to make sure we read our keys. We understand what our job is, and we got to be in correct position. Offensively, we need to keep them off balance. We need to utilize both the run and the pass, utilize our formations, and keep them guessing.
Final question before I let you go, Coach. Again, Philipsburg-Osceola football head coach Jeff Vroman is joining us here on PA Prep Sports Breakdown on State College's ESPN Radio. What are your expectations for the game? Now it's starting to transition to that fall season, the crisp, cool air, so you're getting your classic high school football game between two schools that know each other very well, and there is still a lot at stake as we get to the halfway point in the season.
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely a lot at stake. We have a lot of football to play yet, but we need to get back to knowing how to be successful. And that's what I keep telling the kids. You know how to be successful. Now we need to get back to that. Bellefonte's a much larger school, but that isn't something that we use as an excuse. We never use it as even a driving force. The key is they're the next team on our schedule. We also have the Luther Trophy. That's part of the game's history. It hasn't been here since I left 12 years ago. And then when I went as an assistant coach to Bellefonte, it was important when I was there that we got it back. And that's what happened when I was there. So now it's my chance. And I keep telling the kids, we need to take this opportunity to get that trophy back to our school.
Philipsburg-Osceola football head coach Jeff Vroman joining us on the show. Coach, best of luck on Friday night. We'll be excited to cover it here on our end. And thanks so much for the time today.
Sure thing. You're welcome.